Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this afternoon I'm joined by Peter McGackie. We are talking Celtic 2, St Mirren 2. Well, Peter, at half-time, we were a bit despondent. We were looking at quite a few negatives, and we were hoping that someone could grab the game by the scruff of the neck. We did do that, but we couldn't get the win. It was all Celtic pressure, but not the most memorable of games, was it?
No, to be honest, I thought we could have been about 3 or 4-1 down. Curtis Bain is a chance at the back post. He hits the post. A very, very underwhelming performance. It's a wee bit something for Ange to think about, and it's a wonder. You wonder where these performances have come from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, after winning the league convincingly, and then we've sort of really just took a nosedive and tapered off with the intensity and the style of play, and it was very difficult to watch. We salvaged a draw, but to be honest, I don't think you could complain if St Mirren won that game.
You're right about Curtis Bain. I mean, I don't know, someone in the comments might be able to tell me the last time a player scored 4 goals against Celtic. It was probably a while ago, domestically. I remember Frank McDougall doing it on one occasion, and Main had the chances to do it, and when he's hitting the post and he's winning headers at the back post, he should do a lot better with that, actually. And the very fact that he's going off the park at the end of the game there, with his, his head in his hands, it's because he scored a couple of goals, but he should have done so much better. But a big part of that, not only down to his harrying and the physical presence he's got, I just don't think we contained him well enough. And I'm looking at this game and last week's game. We knew that Carter Vickers, after we clinched the title at Tynecastle, we knew he was going to go for that operation, Peter. So you're looking at that and thinking, right, what's our options here? And the instant kind of player you would have gone to was Kobayashi, because he's came over with pedigree. He's a player that's been identified by Ange. You're thinking to yourself, he's a natural replacement for Carter Vickers. And against Hearts and against Rangers, he's not been great. Right, so then you think, well, what's the other options? Iwata, and we try Iwata. And today, and he's a player, by the way, that I really fancy. I think he's very good in the midfield. I would have played him from the start against Rangers last week, and I'm not convinced about him as a centre half. I mean, the only other option we've got, who is nowhere near it at the moment, and I was actually being told last week he's no fit, is Stephen Welsh. So it's between Iwata and Kobayashi, really, for the cup final. What do you make of that? Because obviously Starfelt is the main man at the moment in the centre of the defence. We're going to have to play one of them, Kobayashi or Iwata. On today's evidence, it's not Iwata, is it?
No, he's a midfielder. And I don't think it's his fault that he's been thrown in there. He didn't maybe cover himself in glory in certain aspects of the game, but he's been thrown into a centre-half position that he's not played in all season. He's, for what we know, he's a midfielder, and I think if you've got a good centre back pairing behind him, and he can just sweep up and maybe drop into like a 3, then he's a better player in there, and then let the centre halves attack the ball and try and win. He can win the second balls and stuff. So I think it's funny when you think. If Maurice Jens was still here, you'd be like, I would take Jens in front of they two. But when Jens was here, I didn't think he was the answer as well. So I think there's an improvement to be made in this position. And I know it sounds like you're being reactive and things like that, but you can only go with what you see. And if you're not seeing the quality, because if we're not what a one-man team. If Carter Vickers is out, we should still have enough in that team, and that's not enough to drop the quality the way it's been dropped and the way we've been passing and playing and stuff. Like, that's not down to one guy in the defence. But I think it'll be a very interesting summer, because I think we'll get to know where the board wants to go and where Ange wants to go, and if there is big changes, then you can see it. And I'm not averse to seeing players leave, even if they've been here for one season, because I think that's generally what he's looking to do. He's probably looking to bring in people for like 18 months to 2 years and then move them on. Mm-hmm. So, and he's no scared to admit if he's wrong. Now, I'm not going to say that Kobayashi is not going to be a good player or anything, and I would play him in the cup final because I think he's more of a centre half than Iwata. So I think, and that's what's disappointing about the day. You think, well, why didn't you play him? You need to get minutes in his legs.
Yeah.
As well as, if Taylor's maybe got a niggling injury or anything like that, you need to get Bernabei playing as well, because you need to get these players game time in their legs for if they have to come in and play the cup final. So,
you know this, right? There was a point during the week, and I'm going to credit Jim Orr with the point. Apologies if it was someone else. And we were talking about how you're looking at certain players in the team, Peter, that are irreplaceable. Carter Vickers, absolutely. Another one that's been mentioned all season has been McGregor. But Jim made the point that Carter Vickers is out the team, and we've not functioned the same way. Callum McGregor was at the team. Matt O'Reilly slotted in really nicely into his position. And I'm not writing off McGregor, by the way. I know his importance. But what I'm trying to do is highlight the importance of Carter Vickers rather than demean any importance of Callum McGregor. And there was a point at half-time we made regarding match fitness versus Ange fitness, which seems to be a couple of levels below. And when the whole team aren't firing on all the cylinders, then you can actually see it. And I think we see the tempo, until we actually made the substitutions in the second half, was really flat again like it was against Rangers. But the point I'm making is I agree with you. I think Kobayashi has to play. He's the guy that has to play. We've got 2 forced changes. Carter Vickers and Johnson are out. So what I would be doing is I would be playing Starfelt and Taylor. Absolutely. Every single game, because they are your building blocks. And then the other 2, Ralston, who I think played better today than he did last week. And then the other centre-half isn't Iwata, it's Kobayashi for me. Now, when we talk about Ange fitness and getting up to that Ange fit kind of level, how do you expect Kobayashi to do that in 2 games? He plays against Hearts, he plays against Red, and then we drop him. So I think we revert back to Kobayashi for the remainder of the league campaign. We try and get that understanding built with him and Starfelt to get us through the Scottish Cup final and towards that treble. And I think today and last week it has made that pretty clear for me. Kobayashi was poor last week. I think he was directly responsible for the first 2 goals and indirectly involved in the loss of the third goal. He could have done better with his covering back for Joe Hart. But with all that said, I do think that you've got to work on that partnership between him and Starfelt and look ahead to the cup final. I'm not writing Iwata off because I still think he's a really, really good midfield player, and I think his future is a defensive mid, a number 6, a pivot, whatever way you want to describe that. I'm keen to get people's thoughts on the game. Good, bad, and indifferent. Bring them on. Personal Jesus, good to see you. A shambles, says Personal Jesus. Our defence made Curtis Main look like Didier Drogba. He did look pretty good today, I've got to say. Joe lacks heart, in my opinion. He's certainly no Fraser Foster. We did talk about Joe Hart. And whilst I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, and I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and all this kind of stuff, every time Joe Hart's name gets mentioned and the fact that we could potentially be looking for an upgrade, a lot of people completely disagree with that. We've seen Danielle at half-time, not scared to be vocal about Joe Hart, because I think that, with regards to the way he was parrying balls and punching balls unnecessarily in the first half, I think that was an issue against Rangers as well. I just want him to be more commanding, Peter. And the point you made at half-time was right. We know he can be. We've seen him doing it. But even in that second half, I'm not seeing him being a commanding presence.
I thought he had super glue in his boots. I thought he was stuck to his line. I was like, every time we get the ball just get lumped into the box, it was just not coming out. There was a ball that get played back out of the St Mirren right back, and he's whipped a ball in. I think in past times, Joe Hart just going to come out onto the centre circle and just smother that. Yeah. But he lets it go across the goal, causes a bit of havoc in the defence. And I think when you've not got a commanding goalkeeper, it really, really bleeds into the defence. And if you've got a weaker defence, then it's just sort of compounds the problem. I was looking at even sometimes when St Mirren clearly didn't have anybody up front, they were just lumping the ball up to clear it. I want Joe Hart to be right up, on the halfway line, starting the attack. With Joe Hart, is somebody that there was always sort of slight questions of, even when he was playing well, you're thinking, do you need to upgrade in that position just because of his age and stuff? Yeah. And I think when he's having sort of weaker performances, you have to really, really look at that position, because I think this team, you want to be young, dynamic, play a certain style of football. And you think if you have a goalkeeper in there that's really good with the ball at his feet, commanding, comes out, can maybe shot stop, that's a really important position. And if you maybe take some of the money that we all have in the summer and really look to strengthen that with a quality goalkeeper, then how much better a team will you be? Because he's such an important position in the team that he starts attacks, can come out, sort of sweeper keeper, can stop attacks at the source and stuff. So he's not infallible, and he's done a great job. But you have to think: are we going into next season? Will we be happy enough with Joe Hart? And these type of performances, it really brings it sort of sheds a light on like his age and stuff. That's what you really start questioning.
You know, the question in the WhatsApp group, which I beg during the OVO event the other night, the Hydro event the other night with Bruni and Lustig, when it was announced that Bain had been given his new contract, I said, you know, going into a big game next season, be that a Champions League game against Rangers, a cup game, and Joe Hart pulls up at training or cuts himself on glass in the goalmouth at Ibrox, whatever happens, and he gets injured and he can't play, are you confident with Scott Bain? And my answer is no. No, I'm absolutely not. If Scott Bain was played today, or against Hibs or against Aberdeen, in the circumstances where we've already won the league, you're not really batting an eyelid about that, Peter. But going into these big games, you want top class goalkeeping. And if we just use that as an example, like we were talking about this before the game, about having a surplus of players, loads of players out on loan, people not contributing, and then turning that into quality. So if you just look at the goalkeeper scenario, when you've got the 6 keepers here now, I'm still including Conor Hazard because he's still on the books until the end of the month. He's still on a wage till the end of the month, which is my point. So just now you've got Joe Hart who stays, you've got Scott Bain who's just been given a new contract. If you look at the other 4, you've got Barkas who's on big money, supposedly 15 grand a week. You've got Hazard who was given a really, really good deal after his heroics in the 4th Scottish Cup final, the quadruple treble Scottish Cup final where he saved 2 penalties. He was handed a contract. We should know better to hand contracts out in the shower and at Hampden, but he was. So he'll be on decent money. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be on the same money as Barkas, but you then look at Siegrist. We brought him in from Dundee United, so he'll be on probably the same kind of wages as Hazard. And then Olayemi will be on a lesser wage due to his age, etc. But what I would rather is get rid of the 3 or 4 goalies and have one goalie and invest in that one keeper and give him all those wages and make sure that keeper is going to be challenging Joe Hart. And that's the kind of view that I would have on it. And I know there's an argument there, Peter, to say, well, what does that do to your wage structure? Well, we've got big earners at the club. We've had big earners in the past. That's the reason, I think, one of the reasons that Rogic and Beaton were allowed to go. You know, they had actually been at their club for so long that, you know, a couple of deals down the line, their contract's really quite high. They're 2 of the better paid players at the club. So we can pay players 28, 30 grand a week. You can do that. Obviously, that's the top earners. But I would much rather that than have 6 goalies on the books. I'd much rather that than have a plethora of midfielders who we have to loan out, or loads of wingers that we need to, just get rid of them all. Get rid of them all and bring in one player of quality in each of these positions. And once you've got the 4 or the 5 players that you're bringing in and you've offloaded as much as 14, we've done it in transfer windows before. You know, if you look at the transfer window when Ange comes in, we offload a hell of a lot of players. And we do that historically. So that's my take on Joe Hart. I'm not ready to write him off. I think he should be doing better, but I also want him to be challenged. Who's challenging him just now, Peter? If he has a bad game, he's not going to get dropped for the cup final, is he? So, he's not being challenged. And I think we need to do that. A few other players I want to mention. At halftime, I think it was after the actual halftime bulletin, we said, we need McGregor to step up now because actually he's the worst of the 3 defenders in the first half. I don't think we said it in the bulletin. And he's the guy that grabs the game by the scruff of the neck, scores the goal. It was reminiscent for me of the Aberdeen goal up at Pittodrie, where he's really, taking his time, got the angle, got the space. He's been set up on this occasion by Abada, and he done what you would expect from Callum. But I think that shows that, even when he's having a bad game, Peter, he doesn't hide, does he?
No. When you look at these players that you've got so much confidence in, they've got a lot of credit in the bank with you. You forgive them certain performances. Obviously, he started off with a few slack passes, but I didn't think it was particularly bad. He just started. He just got a high standard that we're sort of used to. Like I said a while back, I said he goes under the radar. Probably has like 7, 8 out of 10 games every week. So when he maybe drops just that slight bit, maybe a few over hit passes, you sort of notice it. But he's always good for a goal, and it used to be like that before he got moved into that sort of sitting midfielder spot. He was always good at breaking forward, and that's what I think we hoped when we brought like a Wata in. We were hoping maybe could he sit and then let McGregor get forward. But I think in the overall performance, he did well. He got us back into it, and I thought we would probably go on and maybe sneak a win. But I think there was just too much breakdown of communication with certain players. I don't think the movement was good enough. I think a lot of players were getting it, playing the safe pass. Not a lot of players were making runs off the back of people just to try and drag people out of space and things like that. Things that you're used to Celtic doing, because it's just generally with Celtic playing, it's just like 11 players just constantly moving, constantly dragging players out of position. And I think I just don't think it happened enough. And I think there was just a wee bit of lack of quality in the final third when it came to certain situations that we had. When I think back in the game, I don't think we really tested the keeper too much, to be honest. It was Kyogo with a very quiet game, but again, he relies on service, and there was absolutely nothing coming in. So it was a very difficult game to watch, but again, it's one of the ones where you think there's not much on it, but it's a funny situation we're in with this cup final.
I know.
Because it's like if we were out like the cup, you would be like, right, well, let's just play players that haven't had a game the last few games, get them embedded in the team for next season. But when you still get this cup final to play, and I get it, a lot of people, I've talked to some people and they say, don't be silly. They have written Inverness off the league below. We have too much quality for them. I get that, but the way I think is you can't take these things for granted, because you'll do that at your peril. And if you lost that game, because we have Inverness in the past have been a bogey team for us, so you just can't take any of these games for granted. You want to go in and you want to really show a good performance. And if we have another 2 games like this, let's say, maybe get beat, maybe draw, we have bad, poor performances, players out of form and stuff, you're going to be a wee bit nervous going into Hampden in that last day of the season.
Yeah.
Win a treble.
You're speaking a language of IH Decorating, who says we look absolutely spent. Anyone thinking a treble is a formality needs to think again. And, some of the guys have played a lot of football and have played at a really intense level all season for Ange Postecoglou. And one of the players that we spoke about at half-time, where I think he is off form. I think it's fair to say that he's not hitting the peak of his form and the peak of his powers, is Rio Hatate. He's a guy that you would look at normally to be the game changer, to orchestrate the pace of a match, to be able to use his range of passing to pickpocket a tight defence like the St Mirren one. I don't think he did it, albeit he gets an assist for Kyogo's goal. I feel sorry for Kyogo. We barely spoke about his goal at half-time, by the way. We were so disappointed that we were 2-1 down. We need to speak about his goal. So Hatate comes off with an assist today, but I really don't think that he's up to his optimum at the moment. Is it really just down to what we were speaking about before, where you've got a guy like Moy that once he gets to that point, he's really firing, and then if he drops out for a couple of weeks, it's a case of building him back up? Is that what Ange is doing with Hatate just now for the cup final, getting him back up to that optimum performance?
I think, remember when he first came in and he sort of burst onto the scene, and then towards the end of the first season he was here, it was honestly terrible. Like it really took a nosedive. Like it was brilliant when he first came in, but the fitness, I remember he was playing against Rangers at Ibrox, I think, and somebody just sprinted by him and he just looked like he was running in Trico. He just could not move. And I was like, right, get him a pre-season, get him up to speed, and we'll see the sort of real player that he's going to be. And that was this season. And up until he got his injury, it was up there for player of the year. I just think with that injury and the time out, it's really sort of set him back. And I think he's the type of player he likes to manage his body and things like that. So whether it's mental as well, maybe he's not busting into sprints. Maybe he's just that 10%, just pulling out of tackles, things like that, and the match sharpness that he needs. Because he's the type of guy that you would look at. He was one of the top 3 players in the team in the middle. You'd be like, right, he's going to turn the game. He'll create an assist, and he's still done that today. But it just seems a wee bit off it. And I think, and if you want to get him in the cup final, you need to keep playing him. I think he's the type of player that just will need to keep getting played to get back up to sharpness.
I agree with that. I do agree, and I think that even though I was, saying I'm pretty vocal about Iwata playing against Rangers, it was simply because I think we'd seen a really, really good performance by Iwata in the 3-2 game against Rangers at Celtic Park. I do believe that the best trio in the midfield is the 3 that started today. I thought O'Reilly played pretty well today. I mean, I don't have any gripes about O'Reilly. I wasn't surprised when he came off because he does tend to get tired at that period of the game. And when he did come off and when the others came off, I think we've seen a complete change in the intensity that we were playing at. And I think in the last 15-20 minutes we saw the Celtic we were hoping to see after the half-time break, Peter. And the one player I would pinpoint, I thought Abada showed a lot of intent, but the one player I would pinpoint is O. I think O came on and done really well. I know you were standing up for him earlier on. It was interesting to see him and Kyogo on the park at the same time. I think we've only seen that once, maybe twice in the past so far. And in particular, that turn and shot that he had, and that was just on the back of Main hitting the post for St Mirren. He was just full of intent. I like O. I've said it before. I really do like him. He crafted that chance out of nothing today. He had a really guilty chance against Rangers, but he put himself in the position. And that dink, it didn't go in. But today I was impressed. And I think it's important to go back on the point you made. Let's not write him off so soon.
No, for me, I'm sort of shocked that anybody's trying to write him off. If you're looking at 3 players, let's say, that were questioned at Ibrox, and it was Kobayashi, Bernabe, and O. O for me is like the untouchable one out of them. I think he's just come into the team even later than Kobayashi, because Kobayashi was here in like October, I think we had signed him, and he was training. He just couldn't play until January. So he's had a good maybe three months longer than O. And I think I just think with his attributes, and he's going to cause a lot of people trouble. I think there's a lot to come for him. I just don't like these bit part games that he's getting, these 15 minutes here and there. And goals change people's confidence. And I think you need to give him a couple of, I thought it was a great opportunity the last 4 or 5 games of the season, post-split, to play him in just about every game. Obviously, let Kyogo come on for 20 minutes at the end to keep his sharpness up. But I think you want to give O the majority of the starts, because he needs these bit part performances. Is he comes on and he does well, and then and then he doesn't get played the next game, and then he'll maybe come on for 10 minutes and do well again. And you're like, that's just not long enough, in my opinion. And if you're going to play him in the Rangers game, why not play him today? Why not play him next week? You have to give somebody a run of games, especially a striker. So I thought he did really well today. Sort of put his cell about, good turn and shot, and he's a presence up top, something that you've not got for Kyogo. And you can see he attracts defenders, and he really gets himself in a boot. So I'm really excited by him. I think he'll be fine, to be honest.
When we made the changes, and I think he was a big part of this, we looked far more likely to score. I know we had all the possession. The possession stats will show us that, but we've played games and we played teams so often in the past, Peter, where you're watching it thinking we're never going to score. We could play 90 minutes and we're not going to score. I think that changed with the substitution, always a big part of that. The only 2 games I think you can pinpoint to say that he wasn't at his best or he was questionable. He came on against Kilmarnock when we were flying. We really were flying. 27 of the best minutes of the season. We even were able to miss a penalty and laugh at it because Kyogo was smiling after he missed it. And there was a lot riding on that on a personal level for him, because obviously he's international manager. Jurgen Klinsmann was at Rugby Park watching him. I don't think he played that well. I don't think it was his natural game. He was trying too hard to impress. And then against Rangers, you're going to look at that miss, and you're going to look at that and say, well, if we pull that goal back at that time. It's a different game. But, you know, like you say there, I do think that there is something about Ange's team where you need to get a run of games. And he's not really had that yet. You know, since he came to the club, he's not really had that run of games. It's difficult with Kyogo. I know it's not all about personal individual accolades, but he scores his 31st goal today. What a finish, by the way. Absolutely superb. And I said a few weeks back that if he was to score 32 or more goals, he'd be just the third player in the last 20 years to do so, which, he would be the fourth player. Henrik Larsson, Moussa Dembele and Lee Griffiths being the other three. So you'd be entering quite a list. And I think that, yeah, you're right about the physical aspect of Kyogo, but what he does bring to the party is his work rate is superb. He, you know, there's a lot of that. People say he's not in the game a lot, but his work off the ball is creating space for others. He's pulling defenders all over the top line. And he is very good at coming back and winning the ball. Now, that is one of the best attributes, I think, of Maeda. But I've got to say today, you know, and I was screaming for Maeda to start at Ibrox last week. I thought he was really poor today. Very frustrating performance that he gave us, to the point where it wouldn't surprise me now if we go Jota on the left and Abad on the right for a few weeks.
I know, it just seems like we're going to start chopping and changing every 2 minutes these last few games. I mean, even you say Maeda's poor, and I completely agree. It was poor, and I've seen tons of games like that for him. But again, if we were to play Rangers tomorrow, I would put him back in. It's just, there's just things that it gives you in certain games against certain opposition. But when it's like games like that, when you're really counting somebody going by someone, he really struggles. And when he does get by them, invariably the big left foot comes out and it's about 29 feet the crossbar.
Yeah,
it just
yep.
Exactly. And like, I just went, it's so typical, because I've seen him do it so many times. I've seen him struggle to get by someone, and when he does get by him, a rush of blood to the head and a poor delivery. And that's the slight that everybody's got on Maeda. It's this 50-50 of the quality. How much quality does it have going forward? How much quality does he give to the team by helping defending and getting back in and winning the ball in good situations? So it's one of them. I would probably, I don't know what Ange will do. It's an interesting one, because he's obviously tinkering with some players, and he's whether that's with a view to the summer or people that he maybe made his mind up on. It was because when I seen the team today, I was like, this is unusual, because I don't think anybody expected. I didn't expect Taylor to come back, and I certainly didn't expect Iwata to play centre back. So I wonder. I really don't know what he's thinking, as in what he's planning for the next few games, because and then I'm thinking, you know, it might. These might benefit us, these games, in the long term. We might moan about them just now and what he's doing, but he'll be learning from them. He'll be gauging players and seeing things he likes, things he doesn't like. So we might look back on this maybe, you know, in next season, or if we're successful next season, and say, when we get beat at Ibrox, or when we drew at St Mirren, that's when he was sort of looking at these type of players, and that's when we moved some people on, or played people in different positions and stuff. So it might bear fruit in the long run.
Yeah, we could be learning lessons all the time. I mean, Maeda, for me, you had that wee bit to his game, the clinical finishing aspect. I mean, we saw it today, back post. He's got to score. We've seen it against Real Madrid. Actually, in the League Cup, he gets a pass by missing the shot, because obviously it went on to Kyogo and he scored behind him. But he has been known to do that, and I know exactly what you mean with regards to that cross where he beats his man and then the ball just goes into the ether, and he did that again today. Big fan of Maeda, and like you say, I totally agree with that. If we're playing Rangers next week, I'd play him. That's just the kind of player that he is. Irishman in Porto, greetings from Boa Vista's ground. This is brilliant. You're watching Acsom and you're in Boa Vista's ground. Superb. My stream kept freezing, so I've had to resort to refreshing the phone. So saw around 5 minutes of the second half. Was it any better than the first? I would say marginally, yes, it was. And I think particularly after the substitutes, there was an increase in intensity, directness. There was a period of that game where I'm thinking to myself, is it a David Turnbull game? Do you bring David Turnbull on for, you know, that long range effort that that he often can do. O'Reilly tried it a few times. Jota, who I thought was our most creative player today, tried it a few times as well, but we just couldn't break them down. Eventually, we did get the goal, but it was a 2-2 draw and not the 3-2 or the 4-2 that we were hoping for at half time. Now, I'm going to bring this up. Because this is about not, having a knee-jerk reaction. Boheed Bob, welcome to the show. If the season continues to fizzle out at the end and we do not win the treble, do you have to second guess giving Ange an extended contract? No, I'd give him the extended contract. He's done enough to prove that his recruitment, everything about him, the culture, the mentality, the philosophy, the style of play that Ange has brought to this football club would result in me giving him an extended contract. No matter what happens today, last week, or even in the final, would change that for me. I think that he's been sensational since he came to Celtic. And by the way, I agree with IH decorating, and I agree with what you said earlier, Peter. Last couple of weeks, maybe a wee reminder about the Scottish Cup final, a wee reminder to say, listen, we need to be at our best. It doesn't matter if this team is a league below us. We need to be at our best that day. So, no, I don't think it changes anything about Ange and the future. I think that this is more of a long-term vision, and Ange is definitely the man for the job as well, Peter. Do you agree with that?
100%. Of course, he's given us more than we ever thought he would give us up to this point. We're in the brink. We won the league in the first season. We probably didn't think we were going to win it. I think most Celtic fans in the first season thought, if we can get within 4 or 5 points of Rangers, well, that's what I was thinking, because the gap was in points was really big, and we had a really big rebuilding job in our hands. And then he won it. He won the double, and he's putting us in one game for a treble. So, listen, he's gave us so many good days that I would. When we seen that picture of Dermot Desmond, I'd love him to get signed up for a few years. But again, Ange just said about contracts, they don't mean anything. They don't really, because if a club wants a manager and they're willing to pay for him, doesn't matter what contract he's under. But I just think he should be rewarded for his work, and I just hope that the board's on board with him and his vision of what he wants to do, because I think we had an opportunity with Rodgers to go and strengthen and do what possibly Ange wants to do, and it's like progressively get better players, sell older players, or sell for a profit, bring in that marginally better player, higher quality player. You go from a £2 million player to bring in a £5 million player in. You sell the £5 million, you bring maybe a £8 million. Do you know what I mean? Progressively over the next 2 to 3 years, and it's a huge opportunity. And I think you've got lucky to a certain extent. You missed out on Eddie Howe. You got Ange, and it's sort of fallen into your lap. This type of manager and what he wants to do, and the way he's revolutionised the club and got the fan base back on board. The board should look at that and go, do you know what? He's worth investing in. We need to go with this, because this guy knows what he's doing. Yeah. So I would hope that they see the vision, they see the plan that he wants to implement, and he wants to improve in Europe, and wants to buy players, sell them, and bring in a higher quality. And the board really need to get on board with that. And that's I think why some people are concerned about people like Scott Bain and things like that. Are we reverting to type? That's what we've done in the past, and it's no got us anywhere. So I think we need to change our mindsets, and I think the fans have got on board with that. We've changed our mindset. We're willing to let players go because we've seen what he can bring in. So the board have to get behind him, and I would love to see him, sign a 3-4 year contract just to secure him with the club. And I actually think there's a lot of talk about him, links to him leaving here, there, and everywhere. But I think he wants to do something special, and that's probably naive or whatever you can call it, because I'm a Celtic fan and I see through green tinted specs. But I think he does want to take a smaller club in regards to like Europe, and actually, make an impact, and that would actually really show how good he is.
I think so. It's about a legacy. We've seen some players, we've heard some players talking about that. You want to leave a legacy, you want to win medals. And although, there is that carrot being dangled in front of players and managers, and it's incredibly difficult, I'm sure, to look at the figures and and think to yourself, no, I'd rather stay here. But I think there's a legacy element for Ange. You can look at the most that a club has ever paid for a manager is Graham Potter from Brighton to Chelsea. And you think, what's your legacy? What did you do? What did you do at Chelsea? What did you win? Where did you take the club? How did you leave them? And I think Ange Postecoglou, it's unfinished business. You know, in 3-4 years' time, that might be completely different. And it might be time. There comes a natural point, doesn't there? There's a natural point where it is time for change, both for the manager and for the club. I don't think we're anywhere near that at the moment. And by the way, a 2-2 draw against St Mirren makes absolutely no difference to that. I think Ange is looking at all the players that he has at his disposal. He's going to try and keep as many of them as sharp as possible for the cup final, and we look forward to that. Hopefully, if you're listening back to this, you met some of our distributors today in and around Celtic Park. There was half a dozen of them wearing the canary yellow Shamrock tracksuit tops, and I hope you were able to go up and say hello to them as well. We'll be 800 live consistently for that post-match stream. Thank you all for getting involved. That's a huge commitment from every single one of you, and thanks for getting involved in the comments. If you like what we do, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. If you want to come and see us live, we're with Jackie McNamara. Jackie McNamara. I was thinking Lou McCarry. I don't know why he came into my mind. Jackie McNamara on Friday night. We're in Gracie's in Glasgow. Come along. There's a few tickets left, and the link is underneath this video. Peter McGackie is the most recent acquisition by Acsom, and you've been on the show quite a few weeks now, Peter. I think it's always an absolute pleasure when you come on to the show. So thanks for being part of the team, and join us again at 12:30 on Monday for a Celtic State of